I hope everybody is having a good day and that it is sunny and bright where you are. We are having a cold yet sunny day here in Southern Ontario in Canada. Um, so nice to see some sun for the winter. And I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to join us as we head to Peru this afternoon. Peru is one of my favorite destinations. I'm usually, everybody that kind of knows me kind of knows that Africa has my heart, but Peru is really an outstanding destination and truly one of my favorites. I've been there a handful of times now and hope to return many, many times. And so I am very glad that you've all joined me for this. I hope I can do justice to this amazing destination. We will take questions at the end of the presentation, but we will have the chat open. So if you have something you want to just comment on, or you want to just reach out to anybody else that have joined us, then just make a little quick note in the chat. We also have Irene here from operations at Women's Travel Club, and she will be watching the chat. So if there's something that comes through that she can answer, she'll answer you in that. And hopefully by the end you have lots of questions and we can keep chatting about Peru a little bit more. So just to introduce who we are, so we are the Women's Travel Club. We do small group tours for women all over the world. Our tours are very small groups, so only up to 16 per tour, and we do that because we want you to feel like you're traveling with a group of friends. Most women come to us as solo travelers. We will match you with a roommate if you want to take advantage of a double occupancy rate, or we do have single occupancies available. And once you've kind of been on a tour, you're going to make friends and get to know people. And then you're going to have lots of friends to travel with who will also be available and want to travel with you. So you can just see this is one of our groups, previous groups to Peru. And that is me in the lower kind of kneeling down. I was the tour host for this tour. Very lucky me, because getting to Peru is an amazing kind of opportunity. So I am Marianne. I'm head of the marketing department at the Women's Travel Club, and I'm also one of the tour hosts. So occasionally on a tour, you might be on a tour with me. And also I have with me Irene, and she's from operations at the Women's Travel Club. She's often who answers the phone if you call in, or the chat, or if you have any questions or need travel insurance. That's often you will talk to Irene about that. Okay, so let's head to Peru. I'm going to start with just some interesting facts that you might not know, just to get you a little bit in the Peru state of mind and ready for our tour. First fact is going to be that 3/4 of the world's alpaca population live in Peru. And this is true. I think everybody in Peru has a pet alpaca, and they treat them very much as pets. They dress them up. The young alpacas are always just freshly bathed and fluffy white. They are important in that they use their wool for a lot of their textiles. And if you're ever in Peru, you're going to certainly come home with something made from alpaca, because it's soft and just lovely. This is the Carol in the Supe Valley, and it's about 200 kilometers north of Lima. It's believed to be the oldest site occupied by humans in the Americas, and its history dates back 5,000 years. Here's a fun fact. Peruvians celebrate New Year's by gifting one another yellow underpants. on New Year's Eve to bring good luck in the coming year. It is a tradition to wear them inside out underneath their clothing until midnight and then flip them around at the stroke of midnight. So, did you know it takes between 500 and 600 hours and up to 6 months to spin, dye, and weave a traditional Peruvian poncho? Peruvians generally receive one poncho upon becoming an adult and it is expected to last a lifetime. Nearly every weaving technique known today was invented by the Peruvians, all of them being invented by 3000 BC. And on the right there, modeling the Peruvian poncho is my very willing and a little silly husband. So he was quite willing to model what a Peruvian poncho would look like. This is Cerro Blanco, which is found in Peru, but it's the highest sand dune in the world. It's located in the Sechura Desert and stands 3,860 feet from base to summit. And then for the opposite spectrum, we're going to look at the deepest canyon in the world. Cotopaxi Canyon is also found in Peru, and at 11,004 feet deep, it's almost twice as deep as the Grand Canyon. And that is just the start of the beautiful views you're going to see. I think that's one of the reasons that I love Peru so much is can't tire of the views. Those Andes Mountains just make for amazing views. The Inca Empire was larger than Imperial Rome at its peak. It included 24,855 miles of roads and relied on a network of runners to keep the kingdom connected. So the runners would basically leave with messages and be gone for days and run from one town to another to deliver the messages along the way. And a lot of them use the Inca Trail, which we will talk about in a little bit. But you've probably heard of the Inca Trail, and that's where these runners, a lot of them would be using that network. The potato originated in Peru, and today there's over 3,000 varieties grown in the country. Peruvians have a saying which translates to, "I am more Peruvian than the potato." Peruvians are the only ancient culture to define constellations, both light and dark. Some of the main streets in Cusco are designed to align with the stars at certain times of the year. Machu Picchu also has a sun temple. And when you're there, I've learned probably more about constellations from being in Peru than anywhere else in the world, and seen some amazing, just the constellations, they'll point them out, and seeing them from the opposite spectrum because of being on the other side of the equator, and you see constellations you don't see from North America. So let's look at the best time to visit Peru, keeping in mind that again it is the other side of the equator, so their winter is our summer and vice versa. So in their winter, there's so their winter is going to be dry and a little bit cooler, but a little bit cooler isn't, there's not great fluctuations in temperature. So still their coolers like low 70s, quite comfortable, quite nice for traveling. The summer where it's a little bit warmer is also quite a bit wet. So it's not an ideal time to go. A lot of what you're going to see is outdoors. You're not going to want to be there while it's raining all the time. But their winter being our summer months when children are off school and such is also very busy. The best times to go are going to be the shoulder season. So in the fall or the spring, keeping out of kind of the wetter time, the weather's quite nice. And if we go in their spring, which is our fall, you're going to also have the benefit of the flowers are coming out and different foliage is coming alive at that point. So quite a nice time to go. Okay, so we're looking at South America here. And you can see Peru just on the west coast, just surrounded by Bolivia and Brazil, Ecuador, and a little bit of Colombia. And if we move in a little closer, let's start looking at some of the destinations in Peru. And we're going to start with the capital here at Lima. Though its colonial center is preserved, it's a bustling metropolis and one of South America's largest cities. It's a melting pot of cultures. Lima offers a mixture of European, Andean, African, and Asian influences, and has become the unofficial gastronomical capital of South America with some of the world's best chefs. The city was founded by Francisco Pizarro on the Catholic feast day of the Epiphany in 1535, earning it the nickname the City of Kings. The city became the capital of the Spanish Viceroyalty of Peru and grew to the continent's richest town. Lima was devastated by earthquake in 1746, but was quickly rebuilt and became the capital of Peru upon independence in 1821. One of the highlights in Lima is the Larco Museum. It showcases chronological galleries that provide a thorough overview of 5,000 years of Peruvian pre-Columbian history. It houses tens of thousands of ceramics, textiles, pottery, metalware, and other excavated findings discovered by the affluent Larco family. And it really does have to, it has like shelves and shelves and shelves. You could never really grasp some of the smaller items, and then some of the larger, really beautiful gold inlaid items are under glass. And it's quite an introduction to Peru, and it's really well placed at the start of a tour just to get you ready for everything you're going to see. Okay, so we're just gonna head out of Lima, and we're gonna go 350 miles southeast to Cusco. Cusco is the continent's oldest continuously inhabited city. And I have to say, it's one of my favorite cities. It is just so cute and quaint, and the people are great, and it's like the little tiny cobblestone streets. It has, for some reason, right next to the cathedral, an Irish pub, which I don't know why in middle of Peru there's an Irish pub, but it is just the greatest little pub. And every time I've been to Cusco, I've gone to the little Irish pub. Before the arrival of the Incas, Cusco was inhabited by the Quilchi people from 900 to 1200 AD. The city grew to become the capital of the Inca Empire and was the center of its political, military, and cultural dealings. While Spaniards originally came to Cusco in November 1533, the city was not officially founded until Francisco Pizarro arrived in March 1534. Just as Cusco was important to the Incas, it became the center for Spanish colonization as well as a base for the spread of Christianity. The city's importance began to wane until the discovery of Machu Picchu by Hiram Bingham in 1911, which brought Cusco worldwide attention. And that is the main square. It's a wonderful blend of cobblestone streets, colonial period architecture, and the unmistakable Peruvian spirit. Cusco's designation as the gateway to the beautiful Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu simply further underscores its enduring popularity. And you can see, as I was saying about the alpacas, everybody's got an alpaca, and I think that's a goat. But you see that cute little alpaca, and it's all fluffy white and bathed, and it's got a little hat on. So they are all around dressed up like that. And if you want to give them a few pesos, you can hold one and get your picture taken. And this is the cathedral that we saw kind of at the one end of the square. And it's the Cathedral Basilica of the Assumption of the Virgin. It's the main church of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Cusco. The Cusco Cathedral was built as a show of power by the Spanish conquistadors to demonstrate the superiority of Catholicism to the natives. It was built on top of the foundations of the destroyed Inca palace of Viracocha and looted stones from the sacred Inca citadel of Sacsayhuaman, who were incorporated into the structure. So they did that often, where they would take something that was important to the Incas and destroy it, and then build a church or cathedral on top. And it was a real show of power to then turn the Incas over to Christianity. And it worked, because Christianity is very much practiced, very well practiced in Peru and all throughout. So it really was a good ploy, and it did work very well. Okay, and as we mentioned, Sacsayhuaman, which my tour guide explained to me, to know how to say it, you just say sexy woman. But I try and put a little Peruvian flair on that. And Sacsayhuaman is located 2 kilometers north of the main square of Cusco that we were looking at. It's one of the most amazing buildings in the world. It's believed that more than 20,000 men extricated the stones from nearby quarries and moved it 20 kilometers to the top hill of the city of Cusco. The main wall is built in a zigzag with giant stones up to 5 meters high and 2.5 meters wide. So these stones are between 90 and 125 tons of weight, and they were moved 20 kilometers. So it is quite an amazing feat. And also the way they put the stones together. So you can look and how they cut them out and then work them into this wall together so that they're like perfectly seamed. The architecture and the way they do architecture from the Incas, and this is something you will very much learn on a tour. They talk quite a bit about it, but it's just so amazing. And you can see the size of the stones here, because see our group standing here, and this is one stone behind us, and it goes from about half, from almost one side of the group to almost the other, and then considerably taller and out of the picture. So these stones are huge. Okay, so the Sacred Valley of the Incas it's just an amazing and beautiful area. Despite that the valley is still fairly high elevation, not crazy, but not quite as bad as Cusco, but still, you're still a bit of an elevation. And we're just going to have a look at some of the main sites in the Sacred Valley, but just beautiful scenery. As we go through, you're going to see some of this scenery. But really, pictures never do scenery justice. I don't know if you've ever traveled somewhere and saw something and thought, oh, that's so beautiful. And you take pictures of it and you look at the pictures later and that's not as good as it was when it was there. So even though it looks very awe-inspiring in the pictures, just to be there in person, it's just amazing. Okay, let's start in Moray. The Moray terraces were used as platforms to experiment the changes in the weather and how that affects the microclimates for crops that they were growing. So it was basically a laboratory of type. The different levels allow them to control the temperature and the amounts of water, and over time they could use this to modify crops for better production. So usually crops are very indigenous to the area anyway, and then they could just use it so that they could grow the crops more widespread and in different places and change them slightly. And you can walk kind of down around some of them. You can see people down here. So there's places that you can walk actually down around these, or you can just stay at the top and look down and take pictures. This is Ollantaytambo, which is a village in the Sacred Valley, just in the south. And it's set on the Urubamba River amid snow-capped mountains. It's known for the Ollantaytambo ruins, and which were a massive Inca fortress with large stone terraces on a hillside. So when you're down in the town, this is way up on the hill. It was originally built in the 1400s as a military stronghold for the Sacred Valley. They wanted to expand control of the Cusco-based kingdom into the Sacred Valley, and so Ollantaytambo was meant to help establish Inca rule over the whole valley. While the Spanish conquistadors, when they arrived, the fortress was the last foothold of the Incas in the Andes. During this time, Manco Inca and his army were able to repel the Spanish invasion for a short time. However, Ollantaytambo was eventually abandoned, with the Incas fleeing to Vilcabamba, which ended up being the last Inca stronghold. Today, you can climb the terraces to visit the Inca temple at the top and enjoy the incredible views of the surrounding valley. And here, this picture, which is actually from Pisac, gives you an idea, though, of the beautiful views of that valley. Just look at that. So Pisac is a village in the southern Sacred Valley region. And within the town, it has a path that winds past the square, past the agricultural terraces, which what we're seeing here, the terraces, which you see a lot of throughout the valley. To the Pisac Archaeological Park, a hilltop Incan citadel with ancient temples, plazas, and the Intihuatana, I think I got that right, a stone structure thought to have been a sundial. The Pisac market, which is one of the most famous markets in the Cusco region, and it's huge. It's just a maze of shops selling everything from handicrafts to food, and a great way to spend an afternoon. And this is Maraz. Maraz is known for these salt pools, which fill with water, and eventually the water evaporates and leaves behind the crystallized salt. They have been in operation for over 500 years, and they're tended by local families, and from this, they get the beloved pink Peruvian salt. I don't know if anybody's ever seen pink salt, but it comes from Peru. And a lot of chefs love their pink salt. Each one of these pools will be owned by a family. And so the family members will come and they'll tend to the pools, and then once the water's evaporated, they scrape up the salt, and to control the water, you can't really see in these pictures, but there's little intricate kind of waterways that they can block off or allow water into. So salt water is coming down, they let the pool fill with the salt water, the water evaporates, and then they scrape up the salt and carry it out in big, huge bags, and then refill it with water. And it's just a continuous process. And the salt pool then be passed from down throughout the family. So the parents will pass it to one of the children and just keep passing it down. So and then they try and build more, but they're kind of out of space to build any more of these salt pools, and they're only in this one specific area. It's the only place that this natural salt springs coming down, and they can use the water to form the salt. Okay, so next place we're going to look at is Chinchero. It's home to a partially excavated archaeological site. However, it's best known for weaving and textiles. It's located just a few blocks from the town center. It's the Weaving Textile Cooperative, and it's created by a group of women, a group of families, and they preserve, mostly the women, to preserve weaving traditions and promote modern weaving work. Traditionally dressed women explain the dyeing process, which relies on using leaves, seeds, and other natural elements to achieve the colors they want. So all these bright, vibrant colors that you're seeing are natural. And they show you when you're there what they use to make these colors. And they'll even teach you how to do the weaving, which isn't as easy as it looks. But this is one of our Women's Travel Club members, Liz here, who's learning to weave. And so it's really an interesting kind of afternoon to learn about the weaving and how they do it from start to finish. And then also you have a great opportunity to buy some of these handmade woven textiles, which when you're there buying them, they're quite reasonable considering you know how much time and effort went into making them, and they were made right there. Okay, now we are going to head to the very cute and busy little town of Aguas Calientes. The whole purpose of this town is it's a gateway to Machu Picchu. So it's basically just shops and stores and hotels, and it has no other form of real commerce except catering to tourists coming to Machu Picchu. You get there by train. It's about an hour and a half train ride from Ollantaytambo. It's Aguas Calientes means hot waters in Spanish, although now it's often referred to as, you'll hear Machu Picchu Pueblo or Machu Picchu Town. It's named after the hot springs in the town, and there is a place just on the outskirts of the town, which is a complete walking town. It's like 5-minute walk around the town, and there are hot springs that you can go and visit and spend some time at. And while we're in Aguas Calientes, I want to show you probably one of my favorite hotels in the world. And I'm all about checking out as many hotels in the world as I can. I love this hotel. It's the Inca Terra Machu Picchu Pueblo Hotel. They're basically a little Andean village with terraced hills and waterfalls, stone paths. They have 83 whitewashed adobe casitas just tucked away into the cloud forest. It's just 12 acres, and it's all like natural beauty kind of cloud forest with just buildings that were made to blend in right within it. We use this hotel both on our cultural tour and on our trekking tour, and it is just, I love it. I would stay there for days and days and days if I could, but I've never been allowed to. But if I could, I would. And even like, because you know, you've been trekking, it could be cool, and you sit by the fireplace and they'll bring you drinks, and it's just a lovely experience, and the food is absolutely outstanding. Okay, so enough of a plug for the hotel. Let's talk about the ways of getting to Machu Picchu. So there's definitely just the cultural tour, like we've been talking about, where you would go and see all the different areas, and you would kind of travel around by bus, a minibus, big bus, whatever kind of tour you're on. On our tour, probably a smaller bus because we're a small group. And then you get to Ollantaytambo, and you would then go from there by train to get to Aguas Calientes. And from Aguas Calientes, you take a bus just from the heart of the town. It takes you up the mountain to Machu Picchu. You can trek from the town up to Machu Picchu. Not many people do it unless you're 20 something and lots of energy, but most people take the bus up. The other couple ways that you can get there is by trekking. So there's the Inca Trail, which is a fairly well-known trek. You've probably heard of that. And there's the Salcantay Trail. The Inca Trail is more of a stone path with or even when they have to go up and downhill, you could have stone stairs cut out. So fairly nice trek. It's not super easy, but it's not terrible because it's got a nice, easy, sure footing. The Salcantay Trail is a more difficult trail. This is an actual trek, and you can see here there's no path. In the Inca Trail, there's that nice path. In the Salcán Trail, there's a path, but it's not. It's like true trekking, hiking kind of path. Okay, so here's a map to kind of show the different tracks, and there's a few others that we're not even going to talk about because they're a little bit more obscure and longer and for other purposes. But the Salcantay is this purple line here, and the Inca Trail is the pink line here. So the Inca Trail is 26 miles, and you would do that over 4 days. The Salcantay Trail is 46 miles, and you do it over 5 days. So it's almost twice the distance, and you're trekking a lot more each day for that one. And then if we look at them a little closer, so the Inca Trail permits 200 people per day. You must book in advance. It does sell out. It gets quite busy. The highest altitude it's going to reach is 13,828 feet. When you're on the Inca Trail, you camp. It's a camping trek, so you can see the tents down here. You'll have porters that are going to carry your gear. You're still going to have a pack of some stuff, but they'll carry most of the gear. They'll carry the tents. They run ahead and they set up a kind of kitchen tent, and they'll get food prepared so that when you come along from your part of the trek, everything is set up and waiting for you. So quite nice. Great. You can see the views here. Great views, great scenery along the way. This is an example. It's a little blurry, but the stone steps that you would be able to walk up. And so on the other option is the Salcantay trek, which I have done. So this is a lot more of a difficult trek. You can see some of the terrain is a little bit, a little more challenging here to get across the water or to kind of get up and down. We got up to 4,600 meters, so it goes quite high. The views are outstanding. It's just amazing. There are no permits or restrictions for this, and there is an average of, they say, 50 hikers a day. We were there for 5 days and we didn't see anyone. So it's a lot quieter. The highest altitude you're going to reach is 15,000 feet, so you're going a fair bit higher. The Inca Trail, because it used to be the royal road system connecting the Inca Empire, as we talked about, the runners would use it. There are a lot of Inca sites along the way. Whereas on the Salcantay track, there's not. There's a couple you see at the end as you're getting close to Machu Picchu, but there's not the same number of Inca sites along the way. Also, the Salcantay track ends into Aguas Calientes, and then you take the bus up to Machu Picchu. The Inca trek actually ends at Machu Picchu itself. So a lot of times they'll line it up that you're just gonna enter into Machu Picchu kind of at sunrise, which is just really cool kind of way to first see Machu Picchu. Whereas on the Salcantay trek, first sight of Machu Picchu is across a valley. You can see it off in the distance, so it's a little bit different. But the big benefit and we talked about my love of fancy hotels, for the Salcantay trek is every night you stay in one of these absolutely beautiful luxury lodges that are out in the middle of nowhere. So they're completely supported by, they bring things in by mule along that same path that we walked in on. And that's how they bring your luggage from one of the lodges to the next lodge. But you work really hard in your trek, and then you stay in sleep in a tent on the ground. You stay in a beautiful luxury lodge with a chef cooked meal, and they all have hot tubs and beautiful, outstanding views. So, it was a really hard trek. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I have to say it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And to this day, I'm like, yeah, I'd do it again. It was absolutely outstanding. Also, if you're a horse person and you're not sure about the whole trekking, they do have a horseback option. So you can do this whole trek on horseback and still stay in those lodges every night. When we do the Salkantay trek with the Women's Travel Club, it's next coming up in 2022. And we do offer either option. So you could do the trekking or the horseback, one or the other. Okay, and then, so all these bring you to actually Machu Picchu, which is the symbol of the Incan Empire, and it was built around 1450 AD. It's designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1983, and it was named one of the New World's 7 Wonders of the World in 2007. It was believed to have been a royal estate or sacred religious site for Inca leaders whose civilization was virtually wiped out by the Spanish invaders in the 16th century. We're not going to go a ton into Machu Picchu, just because you need to experience it. You need to go there and see it and walk around it, and just to really appreciate it. I think this is something that you need to go see in person. So you see the pictures, you kind of know what it's about. But to get more of this, you need to be there in person and be walking around and feeling the wind and the sun, and all your senses need to experience it. And then you will also, you have a tour guide with you for the day, and they take you into the different rooms in different areas and teach you all about what was important to the Incas and why they did certain things. Is truly fascinating and definitely something that should be done in person. Okay, so we're going to leave Cusco area and we're going to head to Nazca. So this is where the Nazca lines are. And it's one of the most attractive ancient mysteries in the world. It's in southern Peru. It's a group of pre-Columbian geoglyphs etched into the desert sands. They cover an area of nearly 1,000 square kilometers, and there's about 300 different figures, including animals and plants, composed of over 10,000 lines, some which measure 30 meters wide and stretch more than 9 kilometers. The figures are most visible from the air or nearby hilltops. And scientists believe the majority of the lines were made by the Nazca people who flourished from around 1 to 700 AD. So these lines have been around for a long time. And truly best appreciated from the air, because you really have to be above them. They're so big, you have to be above them to kind of see them. Okay, so now we're going to head to the world's highest lake, Lake Titicaca. And actually, we're heading kind of higher altitude than we were in Cusco, which you wouldn't really appreciate because you think a lake and Cusco, and you think Cusco's so high, Machu Picchu, that kind of thing. But Lake Titicaca is actually higher altitude than Cusco. And the best way to get from Cusco to Puno is going to be by train. It's an enjoyable, relaxing train ride with some of the best scenery that you will see, and it's so true. The train ride is quite well appointed. They serve meals on the train. The meals are excellent. It's very relaxing, easy way to get across the countryside, and the views, again, outstanding. You just still, when you don't think you could be awestruck by any more views, you will be. And so once you're at Lake Titicaca, you will go visit the Uros Islands, and they're a group of 70 man-made reed islands floating on Peru's Lake Titicaca. The inhabitants, the Uros tribe, predate Incan civilization and continue to hunt and fish the plentiful land and waters they occupy. Despite how it may seem, the Euro actually embraced modern technology. They rely on solar panels to power electronic devices such as TVs and charge mobile phones. Astonishingly, there's even a community radio station on one of the biggest islands which broadcasts traditional music throughout the region. And so these are actually islands made of reeds. So, and they have to keep replenishing the reeds to keep the islands floating. So they go out and they cut the reeds and they keep putting them down and replenishing. And I guess as soon as water's, they know when water's starting to get higher on them, that area needs a lot more reeds, and they just keep doing this to keep the islands there and to build them. And when someone gets married and starts their new family, they'll go off and start building their own island. And it takes, I forget how long it takes, but it takes so many years to actually build the island to a point where you can put structures on it, and then they just have to keep maintaining it by adding more reeds. And it is true, because these little like houses here, or huts, everything's made out of these reeds. So these little houses that were made out of these reeds, inside you'll see a television set. And their boats are also made out of the same reeds. So this is a whole tribe that works on just these reeds of their life. Everything in their life, they've used these reeds. Okay, and so the last place you might want to visit on your virtual journey is going to be the Amazon jungle. As you can see, the Peruvian Amazon makes up about 60% of the country. And I have this cute little video. It's about a 6-minute long video, so it's a little bit long, but it really gives you a nice view of some of the Amazon.
Welcome to the Peruvian Amazon. We are right now at Tambopata, southeast of Peru. Just a 30 minutes flight from Cusco or hour and a half from Lima. This is one. But keep an eye on the muddy shore, as this is the favorite place to relax for some wildlife. Birds, caimans, or even the elusive jaguar. As there, if we look carefully, we can see a capybara, the largest rodents in the world, very well camouflaged, lying down on the riverbank. Let's have a closer view. The capybaras are related to the guinea pigs, and while they can spend most of their time near water, our researchers from the Amazon Camp project, through the big grid of camera traps that we have inside of the National Reserve, and with the help of hundreds of citizen science around the world, have detected that they walk through the forest searching for food or for mating. They usually are in big family groups and are very sociable. Here in Tambopata, you can see them easily, as every ecotourism company, as well as the local people, are committed on sharing the importance of preserving this forest to keep the harmony between species, just like the native communities have been doing it for 100 years, becoming the real guardians of the rainforest.
Let's walk together through the forest. If you look around, you will see that everything works in perfect harmony. The river, the wind, the plants, the animals. Did you hear that? Those are spider monkeys. Locally they are known as maquisapos, which in Quechua means big hands, and those become very helpful when swinging and moving gracefully between branches, similar to the old world gibbons. This could be one of the most peaceful places in the world. There are signs of life that thrive through the trees, the land, and the water under your feet. Amazonian lakes were once part of the rivers, meanders that were isolated. They are in a dynamic transformation to one day become part of the forest. Meanwhile, they are home to many species who find in its calm waters the perfect place to live. Fish like piranha, for example, prefer to live here where they find abundant food. Did you know that most piranhas feed on fruits? That's right, they wait for the monkeys to pass by the edge of these lakes, dropping the fruits into the water, as if they knew piranhas were waiting for them to feed. But there is someone else who enjoys living in the lakes. Giant river otters are very sociable animals. They love spending time together on the shores of a lake, on fallen logs, while resting or grooming one another when they are not fishing. Half a century ago, their skin was highly valued in global markets. Hunting and trade ended the species in many South American countries, since they are animals with no natural enemies. Today, they are no longer wanted for the skin, but the species is still threatened by illegal mining and fishing.
While going down the river towards the Tambopata National Reserve, we can enjoy the magnificent landscape that the jungle gives us with its unparalleled beauty. Suddenly, the Amazon forest feels more and more dense. Riverbanks serve as resting and basking spots for caimans, who seek the heat of the sun's rays to raise their body temperature. But these are not the only predators that make these banks their domains. Resting among the fallen logs, the majestic jaguar observes his kingdom. Unlike leopards, jaguars have delicate designs within the black rosettes of their fur, which when mixed with the ochre tones of it, allow them to camouflage perfectly with the colors of the riverside landscapes. Jaguars enjoy walking and resting along the riverbanks like no other animal. That is why 4 out of 10 visitors that reach this part of the natural protected area are lucky enough to observe them. Seeing a jaguar in its natural habitat is indeed impressive. Its imposing presence is a pleasure to the eyes. An adult jaguar needs at least 40 square miles of healthy forest in order to live peacefully and safely. Here, they feed on a great diversity of mammals of different sizes, including white-lipped peccaries and capybaras. Forest fragmentation due to illegal mining and agricultural practices poses the major threat to the jaguar population of Amazonian rainforests. That is why we call the jaguar an umbrella species, because if we keep its territory intact, we not only protect its habitat, but also conserve the biodiversity and the ecosystems part of it. Explorers reaching the Tambopata National Reserve contribute in an essential way to the preservation of the majestic jaguar.
Okay, so that actually brings us to the end of our little trip to Peru. A little shorter than we would probably all like at this point. We'd all like to really be on a real tour. I'm going to just open up questions. So if I know that the chat's been going, I haven't been able to open it while I've been talking, but have a look and see in the chat. But also, if you want to come on and ask a question, just raise your hand and we'll have a look and see who's here. Got a question. It looks like Janet has a question. So hi, Janet. You're just muted, so if you want to mute yourself, you can ask your question.
The discovery was in 1911 for the Machu Picchu.
Hold on.
I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering how that happened. Was somebody else?
Hiram Bingham was who discovered it, and he was basically just out in the jungle and came across artifacts and like some of the stonework, and that's why everything's like Hiram Bingham when you're there. And so then they realized that it was an Incan kind of temple, and they started excavating, and then just realized the magnitude of it and kept excavating it and preserving it.
So it was just really by chance that he happened to be there and find it.
Yes, well, he was kind of there looking for,
Yeah.
he was an archaeologist and he was looking for ruins, but yes, it was very much just stumbled across it. It wasn't like he knew it was there and was looking for it. It was more a stumble across.
Lucky break.
Lucky for us. We have it now.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you.
Marianne, there's a couple of questions on chat. Can I present them to you?
Sure. Hold on. Let me just.
The one is, again, the altitude. Have you encountered difficulties with altitude sickness? And also,
I haven't, but I did take the medication that you can take for altitude. Well, I'm just gonna lower her hand. For altitude sickness, you only need to take it when, like, just before and just after you're at altitude, and it causes tingling fingers. It causes something funny, but I think it was like tingling fingers that you get from the medication, which I did get, but I did not have any problems with the altitude. And any of the tours I've been on, I've had maybe half and half people on the medication for altitude and half not, and I haven't had anybody have an issue. But I know it can be, and you don't know ahead of time unless you happen to already live at altitude. Then you're going to be acclimatized and it won't be a problem. But if you don't, you won't know ahead of time if it's going to be an issue or not. It doesn't rely on fitness, doesn't rely on anything like that. So we always recommend everybody to go to a travel clinic or to doctors ahead of time and just get the pills and take those while you're traveling.
great, thank you. The other question, when you've traveled there before, what time of year have you gone?
I have gone, it was shoulder seasons both times, or every time I've been there. So I've been there, I think, like September. I've been there October, November. I've been there in the spring. So I have not been there in the heart of the summer, and I have not been there in rainy season.
Great, and just one more question from Stephanie. So she was really keen to see if she could buy alpaca wool when she's there.
Yes, there's like alpaca everything when you're there. You could probably buy an alpaca if you really want to. But yes, definitely you can buy the wool. You can even buy wool that you've watched them kind of dye and spin, and right from them, they're making the wool, and you can buy it right there in the markets. Yeah, lots of wool.
You'll be happy to know that. Thank you.
And it looks like Terry has a question. So Terry, I'm just going to open you up, and then Daniela, I'll open you up after that.
Yes, my question follows up on the the altitude sickness one, and more focused on if you have any sorts of allergies in terms of insects allergies or wasps and bees and that sort of thing. What does one have to be cautious of and conscious of if you are in the more of the Cusco, the Lima, and what you showed in the tour, and not separate from the Amazon? And then if you were to include the Amazon and you were to include Lake Titicaca, would there be any difference? I'm sure for the Amazon, there would be more cautions you would have to take because of being in the forest. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, a little bit, I can try. So I can tell you that when I was there, I don't remember a lot of insects in general. Like they're obviously there, but I'm not in any more than you would notice here in North America. And that was both doing the track and also on the cultural tours. And Lake Titicaca it's not very insecty at all. And so I don't think for those you would need any extra precautions than what you would take at home. So if you're anaphylactic, of course you're going to take an EpiPen with you. And on our tours, definitely that's something that the tour host would need to know. And so then we would be kind of prepared if something happened. Some of the places are fairly remote, so definitely if you are anaphylactic, you're going to want to travel with an EpiPen because it might take a while to get back somewhere with medical assistance.
Mhm.
And for the Amazon, there's but like mosquitoes for sure are there. But it's very remote. So if you do our Amazon extension, you're anaphylactic, we would want to know ahead of time, and we would probably let the lodge know ahead of time, although they do have medical staff at the lodge, just because that is hours from getting anywhere. So it's very remote, and we would want to just be prepared because it's the Amazon.
So just as a follow-up to that, when you're on the trails themselves, when you're on the tour itself, are your guides trained with CPR or trained to be able to administer EpiPens should there be a need for it?
Our tour hosts do have training, but just basic, St. John's Ambulance kind of first aid help. So they're, basic training in case needed, but really our ideal is to get you proper medical attention because we're in no way, medical experts, but we do have some basic training. And definitely on the trek, they have the tour guide, and I know this just because we got into a conversation about it. They have above average medical training. So they have a complete medical kit, and because we are literally on the trek at times, nowhere near anything. So they've got a complete medical kit, complete with like local anesthetics and lots of different medications. They can do sutures, they can do all kinds of stuff. So they are very well trained medically. But for most of a cultural tour, we're in populated enough areas that within a short period of time, we could get proper medical attention.
Thank you.
I hope that's helpful. Okay, Daniela. There, I've opened you up, Daniela. You can.
Okay, you hear me?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
My first question actually was, and I think you do have it, whether I could only take the Amazon portion of your trip. I see you called it extension, so is that possible to just take?
Yes, yeah, for sure. It is a separate tour all into its own. You can, there is a link in the chat. It looks like there's a fair number of chats going on, but if you scroll up in the chat, there is a link to the Amazon adventure. And you can click on that and that'll take you right to it. You would fly into, I believe you fly into Lima, and then Lima you fly into Puerto Maldonado. So what we would probably have you do is fly into Lima and meet the rest of the group, and then we would all fly together to Puerto Maldonado. And then it's a boat ride into the Amazon to get to the lodge in the Amazon.
That sounds very good.
Yeah, it is. I've done this too, and it is really, really cool, really amazing.
Because I have been to all the spots on your trip except one more, and that's just close to Nazca. There's the islands.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I can't think of the name of them right now, but it's what they call the poor man's Galapagos.
Yes, I have actually not been to Nazca myself. So, because it is pretty far out from most tours, and
Yeah,
once you get there, then you have to do like a small plane ride to actually
yes.
see.
I know. I've been there, and we really enjoyed that. It was amazing.
Oh,
And
excellent.
now as I was listening to at the time when I was in Peru, my girlfriend and I, we went and I organized that trip with a Peruvian agency.
Oh, okay.
And they were actually very good, very
Yeah.
good. And I really liked them.
I've done, yeah, the tours with a few different tour
Yeah.
companies, all originating like Peruvian, and all have been excellent. Like I love the Peruvian people. I think they do such a good job with what they have, tourist wise, and they really take care of
Yes.
people visiting very well.
What I want to say, I travel a lot, so I've been in places, and I suffered from the altitude sickness.
Oh, did you?
I suffered in Mexico, and like I suffer in other places, and I have asked this company, and this was the first time that I have learned about the pills to take, and the lady says it's medicine called Diamox.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and that's I did have it prescribed, and it was very much different for me, and I didn't suffer anything at all.
Excellent.
I was
Yeah.
very pleased.
I've always taken it when I've gone, and I've never had an issue. So, I don't know if I would have an issue if I didn't take it, but it's easy to take. You don't have to take it the whole trip, just when you're at the altitude. And I found it, I'd rather be safe than sorry kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I have to say that I found a great difference. Up to that point, never had that medicine, and having it in Peru, I was just normal. So
good. Excellent.
I loved Peru. I would love to go back, but I'm an old lady and I'm running out of time, and I want to see so many places.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah. I'm interested in your Amazon, so I just might.
Well, we would love to have you in the Amazon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela.
Okay.
Any more questions? Anything in the chat, Irene, or is it?
There was one question that I did answer, but could you make clear to your clients that we can serve their dietary needs? So
yeah, for sure. Sorry. Yes, any of our tours, we do ask ahead of time. Actually a few times, we're kind of a bug. But any dietary restrictions or preferences, so anything that you can eat, let us know. And anything vegan, vegetarian, we have tour hosts that are vegans, not a problem at all. We just let everybody know ahead of time, and they're pretty much catered to. Unless, of course, sometimes, and this is just anywhere traveling in the world, if you're a vegan, you'll understand this, that sometimes explaining what vegan is when you're at a restaurant and you haven't pre-ordered a meal can be a bit of a challenge. But any pre-ordered meals, we can definitely look after that for you.
So somebody brought up a question earlier, but somebody else has now asked about the colors of the salt beds. But my knowledge is, and I think I'm right, that the pink is related to trace amounts of iron, but when there's other discolorations, it's because of impurities from other trace minerals. I think I'm correct.
Yeah, and the color of the salt actually changes, like depending. So once the water evaporates and there's all this salt left, the salt at the top is white. So they classify the salt. So they'll scrape off the white salt at the top, and that just be regular white salt. And then as it gets deeper, it gets pinker. And so they kind of separate those out and sell them differently. So when you're there, there's actually because they sell salt there. They sell, like, they have stands as you go in, and so they have the pink salt, but then they have like a darker pink salt, and they have, I believe, a black salt, and then just a regular white salt. So it has to do with the minerals coming from the salt pools from the ground underneath itself. And one salt pool will have different kind of layers. There are different variations of the pink.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you. So that's it for chat.
Okay, and it looks like nobody else has their hand up. So, oh wait, somebody does. Oh, Daniela. Oh no, hand down. Maybe just. Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Oh, Daniela, I think her hand's back up.
I'm sorry to bother you, but I was you said to look in the chat for that the info on the Amazon, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh, okay. You know what? Irene, can you put a link in the chat to the 3 tours again?
Okay.
And because you attended, we will send a quick follow-up email just to thank you for attending. We record this, so we give a link to the recording in case you missed any of it or you want to share it with anybody. We'll put the links to the various tours in it. We will also do, so this travel talk is more an introduction to Peru itself. And we do kind of mention the tours and talk on the tours, but mostly it's an introduction to Peru. We will do an information session on our tours themselves, which go more in depth onto the tour and what we see on the tour and where we stay and everything you need to know kind of about the tour. So that'll come up in the future, and we'll definitely send you a message to let you know when that comes up too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela.
And thanks for the whole talk.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, I just really want to thank everybody for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little bit about Peru. I hope that you want to go to Peru, because I think I've been to a lot of destinations in the world, and it is one that does not underdeliver. So I hope everybody does join us in Peru at some point. And thank you again. And we will see you for our next travel talk.